This is greytFM, a podcast series by Great HR, produced by Timber Media.
Hello, lovely people. Welcome to another episode of Great FM. I'm Ahalya, and today, as we reach the end of the year, this is the last episode of Great FM for 2025. We're going out with a bang. I want to open today's episode with a few statistics. Cue Timothy Chalamet's song.
Statistic.
First, a Forbes report on hybrid work trends in 2025 found that 28% of Indian full-time employees work in hybrid models and 12.7% work fully remote. Indian reports and surveys from 2024-25 show that employee and employer satisfaction with hybrid models and substantial intent to continue hybrid options are also a big phenomenon. Second, WEF or India Skills Reports and national surveys estimate that a large share of workers will need some reskilling or upskilling by 2025-26 as job tasks evolve. And finally, global and industry studies like McKinsey show that executives plan to increase AI spending sharply over the next 3 years. Something like 92% expect to boost AI spend, and many expect over 10% increases. So what do all of these statistics point to? Things within the Indian work landscape are changing, and they are changing very quickly. And for HR professionals out there, it's crucial not just to ride the wave, but also anticipate it. Because if you don't, it will swallow you and your team whole. To keep us ahead of the curve with the right strategies, approaches, and mindset as we move into 2026, we've got Saurabh Kale, Head of People and Culture with over 18 years of global experience across India, Southeast Asia, Latin America, and the US. He has had the privilege of leading people strategies for fast-scaling SaaS startups, global capability centers, and venture-backed tech companies, helping them grow 10x while building cultures that balance empathy, performance, and innovation, which basically makes him the perfect person for us to be going into 2026 with. Hi, Saurabh. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me today.
So glad to have your brain on the podcast because God knows we need help, Saurabh. The times are changing very quickly, like I said. And it has been a crazy year. If we just look at 2025 and all the changes that the work landscape has undergone, that in itself is enough for us to pull up our socks and get innovative. So let's open the conversation with your own experience. This past year, you've played the role of a CHRO. You occupy a unique space of being able to see the change as well as make it at the same time, right? So I'm sure that how you've witnessed 2025 will inform us on the changes that are happening every day.
A couple of things that do come to my mind as we speak is 2025 feels like a year where I personally feel HR truly became a business function and not just a support system or a support function.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of things, at workplaces were also seen. For example, with the use of AI, we blended the data, design, and empathy, where certain decisions were kind of also made using insights, and we stopped basing our decisions on instincts. I also saw that, moving from managing people to enabling people. I think through, again, the use of AI, other tools, platforms, and so on and so forth. So I think the focus continues to be on performance management, but, through managing people and, enabling them. Also, I think the focus for most of the CHROs has been helping organizations build resilience and agility. We saw layoffs this year. We saw, teams kind of getting restructured. We also saw the use of AI. We also saw, probably agentic AIs coming in and automating work and so on and so forth. So I think as, the CHROs, head of people and culture, a lot of us focused on building the resilience and agility and upskilling in the teams per se. And, this is not just reacting to the change, but also kind of, eventually architecturing it for the future. And lastly, I would probably also say that, we saw a lot more human centricity in the age of AI, our people-centric, policies being formulated, while the tools and technology did their job as well. So these were a couple of my observations of how 2025, has been. And yes, of course, the future 2026 probably is going to see a lot more of these with, smaller teams and bigger billions. That's the thought that I want to plant in the listeners, that how can you optimize your operations? How can you build efficiency within people? How can you empower your teams so that with smaller, lesser teams, you are able to achieve a lot more revenue per se?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great launch point for us, and it's a huge conversation that we really need to unpack here today, Saurabh. So, to do that, I think it's important, maybe taking a page out of your book there, let's divide it into smaller areas and optimize the conversation, right? So, because of this tidal wave of change that's coming our way, the three main areas will be modes of work, AI, and skilling, right? For the purpose of today's discussion. Let's start with modes of work. That statistic that I quoted in the beginning clearly shows that hybrid and remote work are just here to stay, Saurabh. I think we're past the point of questioning it and, figuring it out and analyzing whether it's a good model or not. Because, 28% of India's working population, that is a lot of people. So how do you see this work model sort of evolving as we move into 2026?
Absolutely. And I won't be surprised this 28% tends to kind of, or would lean a lot more eventually. So the way I look at it is hybrid work is no longer an experiment or good to have, part of your policy per se. I think it's today an operational model. I also see that the way hybrid will kind of evolve over a period of time will be something I've coined it for my own good is called intentional hybrid, which is where teams are coming in together, not by the schedule or the days that we need to be in office, but by purpose. I think that's going to be a bigger shift in the way hybrid will kind of evolve into. I also see that workplaces will now become collaboration hubs. For example, if you have offices in 3 different locations in India, probably, there would be one hub that would get automatically created. And to my previous point, teams will come in together for purpose, for connection, and so on and so forth. I think, remote work will also expand beyond metros eventually. I think today a lot more offices are focused on tier 1, but I also see a trend where probably the work from home or let's say remote work or hybrid work will eventually move to tier 2 and tier 3 cities. And that too, it will happen at scale.
Yeah.
I also feel eventually, maybe 2-3 years down the line, digital infrastructure will kind of play a very important role. And when I say digital infrastructure, it could be Zooms of the world, it could be the way teams collaborate and so on and so forth, to ensure that the dilution of the culture, the rituals, the cadences, the traditions that the teams have kind of, followed, they only kind of get replicated through the digital infrastructure per se. And that's an area of opportunity for maybe some of those people who are listening out there on how teams need to kind of function, how platforms need to be built, how collaborative tools like even the messaging tools need to be built over a period of time. But yeah, I mean, hybrid is here to stay for sure. Mm-hmm. It's the way we will change and evolve over a period of time in the way we work and engage with our work is likely to change.
So let me follow up on that idea, right? Also taking from the idea of purpose that you brought up, how do you think this new model of work, this new way of work is going to change people's engagement with their jobs? Saurabh, I think it's important for us to now understand where the real value lies. We've been looking for certain things in the workplace, right? Now, what are we going to start looking for from employees?
So before I get into how do people engage at work, and so on and so forth, let me kind of, throw in a few concepts or frameworks which will kind of tie back to what I'm about to say. So there's a gentleman, Daniel Pink, he wrote a book back in the day, called, I think, Drive. That's the name of the book. And he clearly pointed it out that, for any employee to kind of engage and feel belonged, there are 3 drivers. One is, primarily the motivation. Second is autonomy. And third is purpose. That M tends to kind of also become meaning or motivation, but I popularly call it as a mapped framework, wherein M is meaning, A is autonomy, and, P is purpose. If people find that in any work per se, the work is going to become engaging. The second way to look at it is again, I keep throwing formulae, which have worked for me. So one of the formula is 4Ws, and 4Ws talks about work. The second is the workforce, which is the quality of talent, the talent density, hiring practices, your onboarding practices, the way you kind of, manage people through the entire employee life cycle. All of that will fall in the second W, which is workforce.
Mm-hmm.
The third is the workplace, which is where, we just spoke some time ago about how workplaces will turn into collaboration hubs. We typically will invest in digital infrastructures for the teams to be able to collaborate, carry on with their rituals and culture and so on and so forth. All of this will form under workplace per se. It's part of the workplace design and how teams will interact with each other. And the last part is the ways of working. And the ways of working is also something to do with, once again, your rituals, your practices. Every company and teams will have their own traditions per se. All of that will tie into the, ways of working. Now, if you put in the 4Ws formula together,
Mm-hmm.
and if you've understood the kind of how do we engage people, that's where I feel that, the future of work will play a very important role. A lot of people are still trying to get a grip on what would future of work will look like. I personally feel it's going to be a lot more to do with autonomy, meaning, connection. I think a lot of people project in their employee value propositions that, they are a flexible workplace and everything. I think the world will move beyond flexibility, and it's going to focus a lot more on meaningful flexibility, if I were to say that. Right.
Okay.
I also feel people will eventually engage deeply with companies that trust them. When we talk about remote work, when we talk about hybrid work and so on and so forth, I think trust plays a very important, factor in all of that. And if a company is able to build that trust and is able to invest in their growth, people are willing to stay back, given more, contribute more to the success of the company. I also feel engagement will shift from being presence-based, to outcome-based. For example, HR is notoriously famous for celebrations, birthdays, anniversaries, and so on and so forth, wherein people are forced to come, clap for probably events and so on and so forth. So that's presence-based, To probably, I think the way we track the engagement, eventually will shift into outcome-based. How engaged are the teams? What are the outcomes that they have derived? Or for that matter, what's been the attrition in the team or retention in the team, so on and so forth. So I think there will be a shift in the way we measure the engagement as well.
Yeah.
Next, leaders also feel at some point in time, I think I've been talking for some time on LinkedIn about leadership maturity. So I feel that there is again being a shift on being a leader who meets people once in a while in AMAs and or for that matter town halls, to kind of consciously and deliberately spend their time on communication. Because again, when you work remotely or for that matter hybridly, a lot of times cascading of the communication somewhere tends to get lost. So I think leaders will require to spend a lot more time in deliberately communicating per se. And yeah, finally, if you tie in all the things that I spoke, I think I very strongly feel culture is the new currency. If you get your culture right, companies thrive, companies grow, people want to kind of, be part of that, awesome kick-ass journey, and kind of, contribute to the success story. So yeah, I think all of this is how the future of work and engagement will look like.
100% agree with you. And thank you so much for breaking that down, because it is a, complex and ever evolving situation that we need to understand the nuances of. So, and taking from that last point about outcome based, I don't think any two situations could have come together at a better time, the way that remote work or hybrid work and the advent of AI came together, right? It feels like almost a match made in heaven, Saurabh. Because the one thing that has contributed, at least in my opinion, greatly is the use of AI in everyday life, which has made remote and hybrid work a very real possibility. Now, we know that AI has massively shifted the work landscape, but can you tell us how can we dive into that a little bit more? It goes beyond just productivity, right? we've got job profiles that are changing. So how do you see AI evolving in the Indian context in the future of work in 2026?
Now, I could be slightly biased here, but as much as there is a hype of AI, I think it's plateauing at this point in time. But that does not mean that you should not learn AI, upskill on AI, and so on and so forth. But I also want to kind of say the world has shifted from treating AI as a productivity enhancer to probably a decision-making partner. And I think that's a major shift. I probably see people started at some point in time using prompts to write emails and so on and so forth, to primarily today using AI to kind of derive insights per se from the details. I also see that roles are kind of being redesigned with AI as a factor as a part of the role. For example, I'll specifically take up on the HR, or for that matter, say any shared services, right? Be it finance, marketing, as such. There's a blend of human judgment with a machine intelligence. And what do I mean by this? There is a way in which I used to operate. Now I tend to kind of, blend in certain factors, certain machine intelligence. If I was to write an email or study a chart or a data in a particular way, now I kind of, put it across to the AI, churn the, insights, and then I'm able to kind of, present it better as such. So this is the kind of a integration in the way the roles are also shifting with the use of the AI. There's a lot more shift today in the way platforms operate. And when I say platforms, I'm specifically referring to the HRMS. Earlier days, one size fits all. So entire, set of learnings were kind of thrusted onto the employees to say, hey, by the end of the year, you are required to kind of finish XYZ number of trainings or mandatory trainings. So the way I see with the integration of the AI, I feel that the platforms are also becoming smart. Basis how the person learns, how much time do they spend, would they prefer learning in nuggets or would they prefer kind of, longer courses, so on and so forth. AI has kind of entered into the hiring processes as well today. For that matter, if you put up your an application or a posting on the job board and you have hundreds of applications, how do you screen them? How do you kind of, put up your stack rank to those profiles? All of that tends to kind of, come under hiring. Your performance feedback today, for that matter, I've seen nudges coming to me when I'm kind of, I haven't scheduled one-on-ones with my team members for some time, the nudges, or for that matter, it will prompt me or prepare me before the next one-on-one or appraisal to say, hey, these were the areas, that required, some level of improvement. And you may want to pick this up for your next conversation. So I think the way I see today is most of the leaders and people need to be, AI fluent, if that's the word, if I can say that, and the way probably this entire process is going to evolve is, once again, I'm going to say AI is here to stay. It's going to only complement or supplement your work. So I think there's a little tad bit of fear in set of people that is AI going to displace me? Well, I don't think so. I think AI is here to help us. So keep yourself upskilled, keep learning. I think move beyond prompting, learn agentic AIs, and so on and so forth. But having said all of this, I think universally, I very strongly believe that there are 4 skills which I think for the last 20 years have stayed constant. And I also very strongly believe that despite AI or tomorrow any other, let's say, advanced tools come in, will remain constant as well. So I'm going to take the liberty to say it anyways.
Yeah.
One is problem solving. I think if you can understand the problem, articulate the problem, decode the problem, dismantle the problem, all of that put together, I think problem solving skills are universally going to be evergreen. Second is communication. I think, and when I say communication, it's not just the ability to be able to speak. It's also, again, the ability to articulate, to present, to convince, to influence. All of that typically will fall under communication.
Right.
Next is to ensure that you gather people and take them to the glory. You need project management skills, right? So, how do you kind of break down the massive change that you're about to bring? And you need to be able to break it down, follow up, delegate, and so on and so forth. And finally, learning agility. because world today is constantly changing, right? So if you had a plan and something comes up, gets thrown at you, how do you kind of, show your display your agility? So how do you keep learning, in the whole process? I think that's the, these four, I believe, are the evergreen skills over and above the AI that one must kind of learn.
Yeah, I think very important reminder there, to not rely too much or over rely on AI, because the human touch just keeps on coming back in conversation. And, it's important to give it its due credit as well. But what are the biggest areas that you predict AI is going to reshape the future of work in India in 2026, Saurabh? I think it's important to get your insights there. Do you think any particular sectors or particular job profiles are going to be affected more than others?
So I'll probably, stick to human resources for now, because I think there are so many areas that could get impacted with this change in human resources playing a very important role here. So I think, yes, within the human resources, talent acquisition, we just spoke some time ago of how screening, scheduling tomorrow probably could be done by the AI. Learning is something that I very strongly believe, is likely to change. And within learning, I'll probably say identifying your journey based on your aspirations to probably on-demand coaching. Today, some of us in some shape and form might have seen the chatbot coaches, amplify that, and probably you'll have an avatar coach tomorrow, who knows your history, who understands your challenges, is able to guide you. All of that probably will form learning as such. We also spoke about performance management, so I'll kind of just double tap on that. I think regular check-ins, one-on-ones, your appraisal writing, which is a very boring and tedious process. So just imagine that it starts giving you nudges based on your earlier conversations, to an extent that, there are a few platforms wherein, the write-up is already there. You just have to kind of edit it so that your form filling, or let's say your submission, is on time. All of that is going to be part of the performance management. I think HR operations will also, get automated to a very large extent. And when I say that, Indian payroll system specifically is very complex. So think about it that, inputs are given at the start of the month, and by the end of the month, the entire payroll is kind of calculated. Pay slips are being sent automatically, and the money gets kind of, disbursed per se. So think about entire operations, letters, payroll, all of this kind of is, done by the AI. And lastly, I think, when I said leadership maturity some time ago, I think a lot more to do with leadership development, the way leaders will learn eventually. They are short on time, busy in back-to-back meetings. So how do we kind of, compress the learnings and the experiences of, say, others and bring it to the leaders? That's going to be a change in the way leadership development will also happen. But yeah, these are few areas within the space of HR. And of course, there are a lot more beyond the HR as well. But for now, we'll scope it to HR.
No, absolutely. A very pertinent conversation for us to be having on Great FM. I appreciate that, Saurabh. Just going to smoothly segue into the third area, right? AI, for example, is not easy to work with. It takes time, effort. I mean, people are still really struggling with implementing and adopting it to drive actual business value. And it requires a high level of mass skilling as well, right? So let's now take up that skilling conversation. How will this determine the future of work in India? What, apart from AI, are major pain point areas that HR professionals need to be focused on to sort of implement skilling programs that will take the workforce into the future?
So if you don't get skilled, you're likely to be left behind. And skilling today will decide as to who participates in the next economy. And let it sink in for a while. Today, it's not about being employable. It's about relevance. If you're not relevant, you're likely to be kind of left behind. You're not going to be able to participate in the next boom or the economy. And I think that's something needs to hit hard to the listeners. However, once you decide to upskill yourself, there are so many avenues that you can explore, right? For example, there's continuous learning on, how do you kind of, play with AI, build agents, automate certain level of work, and so on and so forth. And I'll stick to AI for now because that's relevant again. But I think India's workforce today stands at an advantage that we are 1.4. We have global mindset. And when I say global mindset, we have coders who can think like product owners. So there's a lot more of cross skilling that is possible today. So if we reskill today, I think we definitely stand a chance, to kind of be ahead of the curve and rule the next decade.
Mhm.
So, from that point of view, I'm going to probably leave us with a thought that if you're able to bridge this gap, which is of digital literacy and AI fluency across all job functions, not just from an engineering or a product point of view, but across all job functions, be it shared functions, human resources, or any other function for that matter that comes to our mind, I think, that's going to be the biggest bridging of the gap that we might kind of, be able to achieve. And with that, like I said, I think we'll be able to rule the next decade.
100% agree. It is a bold statement, but boldness is what gets us through the future and thriving in the future. So, we've reached the end of a very informative and insightful conversation. Like I said, I'm glad we did it at this time because, it allows us to go out with a bang and embrace 2026 in all its glory. But what is your hottest take as we end the conversation on the future of work in India, Saurabh? Dying to hear this one from you.
Well, it puts me at the risk, of being preachy or probably, an astrologer, who's about to predict the future. But I think basis the observation of how the last year has been, I think it's extremely important to understand the growth story for India. So the future of working in India, I feel is not to be around, hybrid, whether it will be remote or whether it will be AI driven. I think it's given today. So, there's no debate. It will be hybrid. It will be AI driven. But most important of all, I think if we can make it human led and tech enabled, I think it's extremely, important for us at this point in time to build the skills that we spoke about so that we automatically kind of, are part of the next growth story and the next economy. Next, I think, it's important today to have the learning agility. Things are constantly changing, quickly changing around us. What worked for us yesterday probably will not work in today. With all of that, it's extremely important to have that learning agility mindset. And that's going to be my second take. Again, a bold statement here. Our biggest opportunity isn't automation. I think a lot of us are chasing automation. How can I kind of make my work easier, faster, so on and so forth. I feel that our biggest opportunity is going to be in reinvention. A lot of things are already being created. If you're able to reinvent it, I think, and using, like I mentioned, the tech, that's where we'll be a game changer. And lastly, I think people do underestimate the importance of workplace. And I'm not getting into the debate whether work from office is better than the work from home or so on and so forth. I'm purely addressing it or looking at it from a point of view that workplaces are the places for collaboration, from a future point of view. So the way I look at it is going to be that work is no longer going to be a place to go to. It will be something that you choose to experience and be part of. I think as human resources or as human resource professionals, if we are able to build this experience for the future employees who are going to write the growth story, I think we have done our job fairly well. So I'll leave you all with this thought. And thank you for having me today.
Many, many thoughts, Saurabh. Thank you so much for being with us on Great FM. I think we feel sufficiently prepared to walk into 2026 with our heads held high and, a long to-do list, but we're confident we'll make it happen. That's all for today's episode, the last one of 2025. Everybody, we'll see you on the other side in 2026. Wishing all of you an amazing year ahead and a very happy end of year season as well. Thanks, Saurabh, for being here.
Thank you.
This is Great FM, a podcast series by Great HR. Produced by Timber Media.